Hello, welcome back to the Streamer Stories podcast. Today, once again, we are flipping the script. We are talking to our lovely host, or you know him as a host, but today he's going to be the guest, actually, Johnny Beard. Yippee!
Hello,
Hello, Johnny. How
hello.
you doing?
I'm
Hello, hello,
good.
hello.
I'm good. 100 episodes. What's going on?
100 episodes in. My God, this podcast has been going for 4 years, over 4 years.
Yeah, 4.5 years now. What's going? I
God.
still can't believe it's real. I just can't believe that we got this far. it's,
Insane. And
it's
what
weird.
what a lovely way to commemorate 100, where we're going
Yeah,
to be talking to Johnny and asking you about your streamer story, catching up with you because we did do an episode with you, chatting to you back in 2022, I think it was. I was also the host back then. And oh, I'm Tangomushi, by the way. My goodness, I forgot to introduce myself. But yeah, we were talking to you back in 2022, but it's been 3 years. There's a lot to catch up on since then. So yeah, here we are again. And we're going to start off with a very simple, easy question to easy into things. What are you playing at the moment?
what am I playing at the moment? You know what? I'm playing Cloud Obscure still. I've been playing this game all the way
Really?
through the year. It's like I keep getting further into it, and then I keep thinking, right, okay, we're getting close to the end now, and then it keeps going. It keeps going. I was told by the internet, I mean, everything on the internet's true, that this game is apparently 25 hours long. I'm like, no, it's not. But then that's how I play RPGs. I I do take my sweet time with them. I've been approaching it like it is a JRPG after all in terms of its essence, and it's I believe there's 3 acts in the game, and I'm right at the end of Act Two.
Mhm.
And I thought I literally did like my last streams, and I was like, right, okay, we're gonna do a big stream, like a 6 to 8 hour stream, and I was like, right, this is it, we're definitely gonna hit the end of Act Two, and I still didn't. I was like, what is going on? But yeah, I've been playing a lot of Cloud Obscure, and I'm about to start playing Soma for the first time. So
Soma, okay, back to horror. That this is actually that was a perfect self-introduction at the same time because you play a lot of RPG and horror seem to be big focal genres for you, would you say? Or you're a bit variety, but I do feel like those two genres come up a lot for you.
they do, yeah. It's always been the two strands of the Johnny Beard DNA is horror and RPGs. With the origin story being Final Fantasy and Resident Evil being my all-time favorite, video game series. It's no surprise with the podcast, obviously having specials on those topics. So it's always been in my DNA. It's always been part of who I am. I love those genres so much. I'm leaning into my horror in my last few months of streaming, and I'm planning to take that into well, for as long as we see, really. There's lots of horror games out there, triple A's and indie horrors that I've either played or not on stream, or that I've never played, maybe seen footage of, but I've never actually played it at all. And then there's some that I'm like, no, I want to play that live and react, first time ever on stream, like Soma. So
Very much so. Yeah, the offline and online streaming experience is like night and day. I'm the same. There's some games that I have to leave it for offline. That just sometimes streaming can it's just such a different environment when you've got eyes on you and on the game. Yeah, and since RPGs are a big thing for you and you've been enjoying Claire Obscura, would you go so far as to say that's your game of the year so far?
no, would you believe it? No, this is a massive hot
Oh,
take, isn't it? It's a massive hot. It's my second favorite game of the year. No, no, my favorite game of the year, and I would love to ask you if you've played this yet. Oh no, I know you already have. My favorite game of the year is No, I'm Not a Human. I
oh no, I'm
love
not a
that.
human. I've actually not played that
You've
yet, but
not?
I've seen a good bit of it. It's ready to go. I'm ready to go to play,
Okay.
but I've heard very good things.
Like, No, Not a Human is my game of the year. And it's my favorite. It's an indie horror game. It's my favorite indie horror of the year. It's my favorite game of the year. And I don't want to spoil it, but what I love so much about the game is there actually are a lot of layers to it. Like, you have your first playthrough. Your first playthrough is fantastic in itself, just because the atmosphere is wonderful. It's so creepy. The music sticks in your head for days, if not weeks, and it's just such a haunting, harrowing experience. But then in the underbelly of the game, like, what is the game actually about? Like, it's the societal undertone, should we say, of the story, and developing of what actually is really going on is fascinating to me because it's so subtle in its storytelling. It doesn't give you the answer. And I love a game that does that. It's almost like you got to interpret it your own way, and I really have done that now without spoiling it, and I won't. why what's going on is going on, and it fits that theme so well. And there's so many characters in that game. There's like 50 odd characters, and we might be getting an update soon where there's more. And they all have very intricate, singular stories to tell. And yet, again, if you do one playthrough, you'll never get to feel that experience and that story being told with that one character, probably. And you certainly won't 50 times because you can never. It's physically impossible to see all the characters in one playthrough. So it's just, I love that game so much. For me, it's a wonderful horror game, and I love Clair Obscur, but I don't think I would put it at like that S tier. Yeah, I'm like on the A tier with it, and I'm like I love it, but I don't love it like everyone else does. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. And it's so RPGs, horror, and indie. So we retraced. I mean, listen to the original podcast with John if you want to hear about your history and how you got into games and growing up with it. But indies is another area that you seem to be very passionate about. So much so that No, I'm Not a Human is your game of the year so far. What have been other indies in the last this year especially, but maybe in the last 2 or 3 years that have been standout to you of any genre? It doesn't have to be horror.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, indie horror and indie in general has always been one of those genres that I just love because, and especially nowadays where it's harder to find kind of really high quality, unique IPs that are in the AAA era, area, should we say? All the creativity seems to be in the indie scene, and yet indie horror, there's a lot of chaff. There's a lot of chaff, but there's some really wonderful, unique stuff in there. No, Not Human is a testament to that idea completely. To add to that list, I mean, Mouthwashing was my indie horror game last year. I absolutely loved Mouthwashing. And that again, in terms of its storytelling and in terms of its similar thing in terms of you can play through it once and it's kind of a bit more on the nose about what's going on in Mouthwashing, but equally a lot of things go over people's heads about what's actually going on there, especially with one particular female character. It's that I love that. I really think Mouthwashing is one of those games that could easily be a movie. The art style, especially towards some of those shots at the end of the game, where you're having a certain interaction with two of the characters, with a gun. That's all I'll say. I'm like, oh my god, this game's gorgeous. It's so David Lynchian for me in certain art styles. So that's one highlight for me is definitely Mouthwashing. I'm trying to think of other indie games that I've loved. I mean, Clair Obscur is an indie game, really, in a certain way.
Yeah.
So that has to be mentioned. I'd say. What other indies, especially that are not in the horror genre, that I'd have to think about? I can't really think right now. I feel like all the names have escaped me. But I mean, one game I definitely would love to talk about is the game you literally just covered on your channel, which is High World Loophole. I was like, yes, Tango!
Let's go, finally!
This game is so good. And again, that is definitely not on the nose about what's going on. That, again, is very good in terms of not telling you what the hell is going on and breaking down that story and what is truly happened. And that is so eccentric. It's so subtly funny. Like, again, you captured that in your video so well. There's some really weird ass funny moments in that game, but it's also really creepy and horrible and weird and fascinating. So yeah,
Balances comedy and horror very well, which is you don't get horror games like that very often. I mean, recent one that comes to mind, I actually highly recommend it to you and anyone who might be listening, is called The Lacerator. I only played that myself about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's like schlocky B movie, but you will not see anything coming in that game in terms of comedy. It's absolutely hilarious. But the indie scene as a whole is just, I think it's booming this year, the indie horror scene, very much. So I'm glad that No, I'm Not a Human really lived up to for you, because there was just a sea of indie horrors coming out in the last month or two, being Halloween and all. But not only with the indie scene, also with the AAA scene, because since last time we would have talked, Silent Hill was still, you could argue, dead, a dead series in many respects, and here we are. in 2025 we had Silent Hill 2 remake, which was many would say a banger, and Silent Hill F is apparently a banger. I still haven't even finished it myself, but where do you stand on a Resident Evil and Silent Hill, the two big dogs,
The big
if you
dogs.
will?
Yeah, I finished Silent Hill F a few weeks ago, and I really really enjoyed it. I'd argue I possibly enjoyed it more than Silent Hill 2 remake, which is kind of, I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. A lot of people have been criticizing like the combat system for Silent Hill F, and I get that, but it's not like, it's always one of those things for me. Like we've talked about Silent Hill versus Resident Evil. Silent Hill has always struggled with combat systems. It's never been a game about the combat system, and I think people are reading way too much into that, because it's there. It's clunky for a reason. It always makes you feel human that you are struggling with the combat system. That's kind of how the horror comes out really of the game. Is like, this is a person wielding a steel pipe and they that's how you would be in you in that situation, and this freaky
And
monster.
In F's case, she's a child, so
Yes, exactly, exactly. But the horror in Silent Hill F, I don't know how far you've got, but there's certain scenes probably midway through the game that was like, wow, I've never really seen AAA horror take this to this level in terms of like the presentation of the gore and the you don't actually even fully see what's going on, but you know exactly what is going on in terms of like the sound design and the certain sounds and certain sequences, should we say, towards the middle of the game. I was like, man, I've never seen a AAA game do it like this before, and I loved that. And I feel like it felt like almost movie-esque. Like, I feel like certain ways horror games are still catching up to horror movies in terms of presenting certain ways of dealing with the horrificness of horror. And I felt like Silent Hill F has taken that to another level. It's like, oh god, that's horrible what's happening to this poor girl, you know. And I love that because I felt like Resident Evil probably hasn't done that as well in that respect. But what Resident Evil has done very well is learning from its about like the stalker enemy side of things, like that it does so well. But I'm looking forward to seeing how Resident Evil Requiem deals with that element coming up. But like I feel like Mr. X and Resident Evil 2 remake was just the best in that respect. Resident Evil 3 I've just finished Resident Evil 3 remake again. Maybe not quite as good with the new Nemi, but it's still better, I feel like, than any other horror out there in that respect. But Resident Evil's been really good at combining the action versus the horror perfectly. It always has, to the most part, up and down, obviously, certain elements. But like, I feel like Resident Evil is still the king in that respect when it comes to mixing the two together, offering some really truly harrowing moments. And all the games have done that. I think Silent Hill is better in terms of horror and atmosphere, but Resident Evil combines action and horror so well. And I think that was the case back then, and I still think that's the case now. So, yeah.
yeah, completely agree with you on that front. Yeah, Silent Hill is groundbreaking in terms of horror, but Resident Evil's more fun. You could argue
Yeah.
it's more about the gameplay. Resident Evil's all about like having a good time and just kind of going crazy, and it's got a story, but Silent Hill is the one that gets all deep and introspective and all that jazz.
Mm.
With Silent Hill 2 remake, because that one had such big shoes to fill, insanely. It could have gone so wrong. What would be the pros and cons of that game too? Do you think it exceeds the original in any respects, or do you think it doesn't live up to the original in some areas?
So I had this conversation, shout out to Ash Millman, literally on our live horror tier list, and we talked about this. And for those who missed that, my opinion was that I feel like Silent Hill 2 remake has replaced the original. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's my opinion of what's happened here. And I feel like Konami, and I feel like Capcom, and I feel like Square Enix when it comes to Final Fantasy. I feel like these publishers, they are trying to make the remake replace the original experience to the most part. I mean, there's an argument maybe Final Fantasy 7 is not maybe the right one for that, but in terms of like Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2 remake, Resident Evil 4 remake, for example, whatever it is, I feel like the objective seems to be to replace the original. Now, I feel like that's probably one thing that Capcom haven't quite done with the Resident Evil series. There's a lot of people that still love the original trilogy. Byron obviously is a big part of that for me. But also, just also those games, people still love and play them quite consistently now. Whereas I feel like Silent Hill 2 Remake did that. I feel like you don't necessarily need to play the original anymore. I feel like the graphic enhancement, the battles, the combat system actually is an improvement overall from the original. The story, they got it pretty bob on. I felt like for the most part, they kept the beats really well of the story, and I felt like their interpretation of the events from the original were what I had hoped they would have put in. I feel like all the characters are what they were or enhanced. I don't think they've made much of a detriment to the game. To be honest, there's very little holes I could pick at it. Whereas there's lots of holes I can pick up, especially Resident Evil 3 remake, but certainly in old Resident Evil remakes, I'd say. Whereas I really was struggling to think of any like comparing this to the original. No, everything was like the same or better. I felt in the remake. I think there's probably one example where it wasn't quite hitting as hard for me, and I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I got the Mary letter ending in Silent Hill 2 remake, where she reads out the letter, and that always pulls so hard on my heartstrings when she's reading the letter out to you at the end of the game. And I felt like that didn't quite hit home as hard for me this time around, and I don't know if that was just me, or do I just prefer the original actress, a voice actor that did that? I don't know. But that has been really nitpicky. Let's be honest. That's how far I have to go to like pick any holes at it. For me, it's a perfect remake in terms of what they want from a public perspective.
Yeah, brilliant. I honestly agree with you. It's really pulling at straws trying to critique the remake, and I'm so happy for Bluebird that they knocked it out of the park and then some. And it's interesting that you bring up the Resident Evil remakes, because this ties into a question I'm going to ask you in a moment. But in our last episode together, I asked you some of your favorite games, and one of the ones that came up was Resident Evil 4 OG, because at the time the remake wasn't out yet. So I'm very curious what your take is on Resident Evil 4 remake, in a similar vein to what I just asked you with Silent Hill 2. Does it exceed the original? Does it replace it? Anything like that?
And that's the thing, right? I say no to that. It's weird. I remember last year, it was the year before. Anyway, Resident Evil 4 remake, when it came out, like everyone was like, GOAT game, best game of all time, best Resident Evil, best remake, best da 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 da. And I was like, yeah, I see it, but I don't quite agree with it like that. I don't quite think it's that high. I really enjoyed it. And again, I struggled probably to pick holes at it in terms of a modern day remake version of Resident Evil 4. But I don't know what it is, but I think I do prefer playing the original to Resident Evil 4 remake. I don't know. I'll find out soon, because I'll be playing Resident Evil 4 remake on my channel soon. So I can't wait to get into that again, because I haven't played it since the game came out, and I played it in on release date. But that's what I feel like the difference is. I don't feel like I felt the need to come back to it so much. Whereas with Resident Evil 2 remake, and even Resident Evil 3 remake, not that I'm saying 3 remake is a better remake than 4 remake, but just saying, because maybe the shorter campaigns of Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, I felt the want to, let's go back in, do it again. Whereas in, Resident Evil 4 remake and original, obviously, I've like proper like steaks. I'd compare them to like steaks, a big juicy steak of like, right, okay, I'm full. I don't need to replay you, And I haven't really felt the urge to go back to it. I've never been like, oh, I've got to replay that now, right now, type of thing. If anything, my head's going, I'd rather play the original. And I can't really put my finger on why that is, because it is a solid remake. It does, everything that Resident Evil 2 remake did in terms of setting the foundations right, and then taking it to another level. Like Leon's combat sequences are fantastic. I feel like the enemy designs are really good. I feel like they got most of the story right. I think one thing I didn't quite like is I didn't like Krauser as much. I'm a massive Krauser fan, because I'm going to fall making, he's a bit dusty, but yeah, got Krauser.
Hey, oh, that's a nice little figure.
Yeah, I got a Carlton sticker attached to it as well. So anyway, shout out to Carlton. But yeah, I love Krauser, and I felt like, I don't know, I didn't think they did him as well as in the original. Whereas then I feel like most of the other characters, I thought like the changes they made to Louis Serra was really good. Ashley, massive improvement, of course. So I don't know. It's a weird one. I'd say it's like a
Yeah.
good 8.5, 9 out of 10. A good A tier game, but I don't know. I think the original's still S tier for me.
Right, yeah, the original is untouchable, but I totally get what you're saying. I would probably lean towards preferring the remake. Just some pacing issues I had with the original were improved in the remakes, but I totally understand. I also feel I could argue the other way. Both are juicy steaks, as you put them,
Yes.
but they are beefy games to get through, so I can understand not wanting to replay them as often. They take a solid 14 hours, I'd
Mm.
say, to beat a Resident Evil 4. It's no short game. And clearly remakes are in, because I'd also like to ask you, pivoting back to RPGs, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, because that came out last year, I think. So
Yeah.
that is also something new for us to ask you about,
Oh,
because I know you're also a big Final Fantasy fan. So
well, I've done, I've
very
done, I've done a couple of video review essays on my YouTube channel about that, and they've gotten the massive hot takes. Like the reason why I got quite a lot of viewership on both those videos is because I went against the grain and said that I did not like the direction of the remake trilogy that's going in. But I'd like to think I'm quite balanced because whilst I'm not happy with certain storyline directions that they're going in, I think the actual games are still very, very good. I thought Rebirth actually, arguably, as much as I was not happy with what they made changes wise to the story, I felt like as a game experience, it's arguably the best Final Fantasy game released in the last 20 odd years. Like it's really, really the fight system is incredible, really dynamic. The characters are fantastic. The music incredible. Beat for beat with the actual general storyline pacing, I thought was actually very good. Some new additional content with like people like Gilgamesh and the summons and stuff like that, I thought were really good. My main crux of it is purely down to what they've chosen to change in the story, and of course, I'm being careful with the wording I'm using here because it's spoiler alert. There is changes to what they made with the story. And I didn't agree with it in the remake, and I don't agree with it in Rebirth. If anything, I think that's what I think I said in my video review on my YouTube channel. Is I felt like I had an opinion on Final Fantasy VII Remake that it was a good game that made really unusual decisions with the storyline, particularly at the end of the game. And I felt like my opinion on Rebirth was doubling down on everything. Like it's a much better game than Remake, but the storyline decisions that they made, I definitely disagreed with twice as much. you know,
hey,
one of
yeah,
the iconic scene of Final Fantasy VII, and if you know, you know, and I will say spoiler alert for this point, just in case people don't want to hear it, but you don't even see it happen, and I'm like, that's robbing that experience from these newer fans. You didn't get to see that scene happen in its isolation. For the same reasons, like when I said for Fantasy VII Remake, I said I hate the fact that they've given you Sephiroth on a plate at the end of the game with his One Winged Angel music. Like that moment, what people don't seem to think about is that you don't even see Sephiroth in the original game until you leave Midgar. He should not have even been in the game, respectfully. He should have been this enigma, this ominous threat, this build-up and of like, oof. Because you'd feel that. You keep hearing his name, but who's the Sephiroth guy, type of thing? And then you finally see him going, oh my good God, Never mind even fighting him as a final boss of his final music, man, And they're just throwing it out there. And I'm like, I didn't like that in Remake. And then Rebirth, obviously doubling down on a lot of the key decisions. I was like, man, what? I know why they're doing what they're doing. I know, let's use the word meta. I know what they're doing. I just didn't agree with it. I don't like that idea. I just feel like they didn't need to do it, and they've done it for whatever reason they've done it. I don't know.
yeah. I completely agree with you regarding the using Sephiroth at the end of, again, spoilers, using Sephiroth at the end of the first remake. He's this omnipotent being, like the Midgar Zolom moment, in the original is that's one of my favorite moments in the game, as simple as it is, because it's Sephiroth d slays this beast, and it really cements that this guy does not play around, like Cloud, be careful kind of logic. And by that point in Rebirth, you fought Sephiroth
Yeah.
if you were playing the remakes, and you've seen him like a dozen times. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Controversial as it may be to some, I completely agree with you. And I know that while I've not played Final Fantasy 16 myself, that one seems to be a bit shaky for people. I'm curious where you stand on, because you could argue there's the remakes, then there's the actual modern Final Fantasies. Where do you stand on 16? Because that seems to be a hit and miss for people.
I haven't actually played it yet.
Oh,
It's no. It's yeah. Because it came out on PS5. It was PS5 exclusive at the time, wasn't it?
for a year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't have a PS5, and then they released it on PC, and my old potato PC would not even handle it at all. And now I've got a PC that can handle it. I aim to play it. I don't know if I'll play it online or offline yet. It's still something I haven't quite decided yet, to be honest. But yeah, I'll be playing it soon. Probably when I finish Cloud Obscure in 17 years.
Yeah, that's just how RPGs are in adulthood. Okay, it takes us like 10 years to finish one. That's fair. I won't ask you any more about 16. But bringing up streaming, I would like to pivot to that direction now, asking you more about your streaming journey. We talked about a lot of that in the last episode, how you got into it, the origin story of Johnny Beard. And on that topic, actually, one thing I don't believe I asked you last time is Johnny Beard itself. What's the lore behind the username?
I have no idea.
I wonder. What do you guys think? Comment down below.
I had a thing going on with my stream like last year. I don't think they're really around my streams nowadays, but it was this particular person that came into my streams like every like 6 weeks or whatever, and would go, hey Johnny, how did you get your name Johnny Beard? And I'd make up this outlandish story out of nowhere, like, so it was because, my mum, had like 5 uncles, and they had like the letters of JOHNNY, and the last one had a beard, and yeah, that was what it was, or whatever. I was just making these really weird, stupid stories up. But yeah, it's as simple as it sounds. My name is John. I know. I hate it when people say John in my channel. Like, did you just call me John? Like, how dare you? That's not my name. I'm Johnny. Jesus. I am, and yeah, beard, because obviously I've got a big beard, so it's pretty much as simple as that. But I used to be known on the internet before I started streaming as Johnny Merseyside. I had a blog under Johnny Merseyside. So I never knew what I wanted to call myself on the internet. So I remember back in the old days of MySpace and Facebook. That's how old I am. There was this thing that you could do where it was your soap opera name is your first name and then where you grew up. And I was, even though I identify as Welsh because I've lived most of my life in Wales, I actually was born in Merseyside in England, near Liverpool. So it was John Merseyside. So I changed it to Merseyside because it sounds like, so I was like Johnny Merseyside for many years on the internet. But it's really long. And I used to do that with my radio shows, which I did mention on my other podcast episode. So my radio DJ name was Johnny Merseyside. But because I was going into the streaming world and I had a webcam and I was going to a more visual thing, it just rolled off the tongue. I used to go to school with a guy called Richard Beard. And no, I'm not trying to say that as in like, yes, I know Dick Beard, yeah, funny. But, literally, I never made a joke when he was younger. And now I'm like, oh, why, thank God I didn't bully him, But anyway, literally that was his name. So I've always known that Beard is actually a surname. And then it was like, well, I've got the beard going on. Johnny Merseyside is just too long. No, I don't want that. I was like, Johnny Beard, yes, that'll work. That'll go. And unfortunately, Johnny Beard is still to this day taken, so I had to go with the underscore in there, didn't I? So,
yeah, I wanted to ask that question in case there was any hidden lore or something too. But I love how straightforward it is. Johnny Beard, simple as that. Just sounds like a full name. Real full name, brilliant. And since it's been about 2 or 3 years since we last spoke, I would love to know, has there been any, because we talked a lot about, again, your origin story of how you got into streaming in the last episode, but I'd love to know, has there been anything major, has there been any cool milestones or events in the last 2 years since we last spoke that you'd love to tell us about?
I mean, the biggest thing I could really say, yes, there's a couple really. They kind of intertwine, I suppose, which, is the charity stuff. you know. I remember us talking on the podcast about, oh yeah, I've done a few charity events, and it was like, it's quite fascinating looking back on that chat we had, because since that then, like, I think at that point we'd raised, so I raised about 700 quid on one event, then I raised about 400 quid on one, and then we did, I think it was the first Daphne. No, I don't think it was the first Daphne, or was it? I can't remember. But we did the AKT charity event. Yeah, it was the AKT charity event, so that raised about £1,000 as well. So I'd raised maybe an excess of, let's just say, less than £3,000, which, by the way, is insane and wonderful. But, like, as of right now, we have totaled on this channel, in the community, and the community around our communities, we have raised over £88,000 for so many
Yeah.
charities, so it makes the 3K look so small, and that is just insane, like, it's the one thing that I never saw coming, and it's the one answer I'm really happy that I gave you on that podcast episode about why I do it. It's because why wouldn't I do it, almost, and it's almost a no-brainer to me that I've got X amount of people watching me. Why don't I take advantage of that and see if anyone wants to donate? What's there to lose? To this wonderful cause, and it gets you excuses to do silly things, for a good cause. So that's always been an element of it. So that, alongside the other thing, which is particularly Daphne, which is my Welsh charity event, like, that is taken off in ways I never saw coming. There's over £45,000 of that 88. It's been going to a charity called Tango, which is a Welsh charity helping children with life-threatening illnesses. But just the foundation of the idea alone that we have created the biggest Welsh charity event on Twitch of all time, multiple times, is incredible to me. I never saw that coming at all. When we came up with the idea of, I knew about 8 Welsh streamers, maybe. It's like, I know a handful of Welsh streamers. How about we do this thing, light bulb idea of Welsh streamers on St David's Day, the National Day of Wales, raising money for a Welsh charity, full Welsh event. And it just took off. It just snowballed. The attention it got from Welsh streamers that were coming out the woodworks, is what I was saying, because it's like, who are these guys? This is amazing. Like, and I've made some friends for life, I'd say, because of Daphne, and to raise £45,000 for that charity is incredible. We've just done the Halloween version for another Welsh charity called Tir Hafan, who do a similar set of work, but more in the south, because I'm a North Walian. It's been amazing. We raised just shy of £4,000 for them. So fully endorsing what we're saying, which is trying to make this very unique Welsh culture celebrated event, has been a massive highlight to me, to say that we've raised, we're closing in on the big £100,000 mark for charity fundraising in the community, around our communities. Like, I never in a million years would have saw that coming. Like, I was like, really? What? What? I headed that? What? You serious? Like, I never thought that was going to happen. And on top of that, I'd like to argue that we've made the biggest Resident Evil charity event of all time. Maybe not financially, but in terms of 77 Resident Evil streamers coming together to raise £11,000 for Mind, the mental health charity. As far as I'm aware, that's never been done before. I don't think that's ever been done before, to have 77 streamers come together to raise money for one cause, to celebrate Resident Evil, and fundraise at the same time. It's like, we did that, So yeah, it's amazing.
Absolute trailblazer in terms of charity and fundraising. Like, that is almost 100K. Like, that's almost impossible to even wrap your head around that. And not to mention how selfless of you to have dedicated so much time to it, because I only just did a charity, marathon myself only a few weeks back, and having done it first time, it's surreal amount of effort. A lot of work goes into that stuff, beyond what I think any viewer will comprehend. So the fact you've done it this number of times, oh my God, like, insanity. Well done. Well done. Fair play.
Thank you as well. I was so happy when you did
No, no, no,
yours.
no, no, no. I'm not trying. I'm not
No,
trying
I
to
was
like
so
give it back.
happy. I was like, yes, Tango.
No, you don't want to mess up something like charity, do you? So it's, yeah, just fair play for it. And outside of the amazing charity work as well, you've really been delving a lot more into YouTube and Instagram as well. You have an Instagram account that you post on regularly. How have you been finding balancing all of that, really? The content in the content creation world.
Hard is the
Hard,
answer.
yeah.
I mean, my main weakness is purely that I'm not very good at making YouTube videos,
No, no.
or shall I say that I'm aware of the effort required to make a good quality YouTube video, and I don't know if I've got the patience for it. Like, that's one thing I'd say. Like, what I've been doing in the last few months really has been, if I've got a unique video or stream or whatever that I've done, I will make it into a YouTube video, cut down and stuff like that, and to post onto social media kind of, easily. Whereas otherwise, I've been doing like a stream series like Cloud Obscure or Resident Evil 2 or 3 or whatever. I do that live and it's done. So that's kind of how I've been balancing it recently with my YouTube. My YouTube's kind of gone through lots of flows and changes in terms of, like, it's purely been effort. Like, at times I felt like it's purely trying to find the time to make good quality, unique content. Like, there was a time. This is a bit of an excuse. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I actually had a really cool YouTube idea last year, which was to kind of combine retrospective kind of it was kind of like a retrospective idea, because obviously there's lots of people doing wonderful retrospectives, yourself included, in terms of like on certain games or series. You're good. You're too humble. But like my idea was that I was going to do a retrospective on a game, but also talk about it in terms of like a storytelling way, in terms of like my stories with it. So I'll say this for nothing, because I think the project has probably been shelved for the foreseeable. But it was around the game called Super Monaco GP, which was a Sega Mega Drive slash Genesis game. And I have so many like childhood memories of playing that game, and I wanted to talk about like all the things that came up in my head, the creative ideas and spillages and stuff like that, and like, oh, how much I hated a certain character in the game, even though he doesn't barely have much personality. He's a Formula One driver and says two lines in the game, But the stories you tell in your head about this character, I was going to go to depth about that alongside it being a retrospective. So just kind of driving that narrative forward. And I actually filmed a load of footage of me playing the game, and I was starting to do the scripting of it. But it was just like, man, this is so hard, so much work, so much effort. And like, that for me is where I fall down for YouTube, is that I reckon if I was to have the effort and the creativity and the time, like, that could have been something quite unique on the internet. Because I don't think that there's not much about Super Monaco GP on the internet anyway. But if I was to do it that way, that could have been something. I had another idea, similar idea about like Speedball 2 on the Mega Drive or Genesis. Like, again, some ideas, creativity, all that stuff. I was going to do a similar thing about that. There's not many people talking about that game on the internet nowadays. So that was something I was going to think about doing. But my main flaw is a mixture of lack of time and lack of like just the time. There's time, and I know that I don't feel like I'm good enough at that to do that, And I salute you. I salute so many amazing YouTube content creators that put in those hours, massive amounts of hours. Like you said with the charity events, people don't see on the outside how much time it makes to make a 40-minute video, So. Yeah.
I love the idea of, can I just say, I love the idea of that. It's almost like a personal retrospective,
Yes.
it's or an emotional retrospective, whatever you want to call it. That is such a fun idea. I do hope it sees the light of day at some point. That would be really cool. I'd love to see that. And I strongly disagree with you saying that you're not capable for it, but I will also say that the only way you can get better is by doing it. You know what I mean?
True.
But I know it's a time. It really, script writing is such a lengthy, and it can also be quite draining process when it comes to YouTube. So I totally understand that. So you kind of stick, or at least you seem to stick more to streaming, mostly in that regard. Do you stick to a schedule? You do have quite an adamant schedule. Do you prefer it that way, or would you prefer to be a bit more like, stream when I want to? Is there any preference that way?
Yeah, I've pretty much always stuck to a schedule. The schedule normally changes, obviously, as time goes on. Years go by and stuff like that. But no, I'm very. I wouldn't say I'm rigid, but I'm pretty structured. I think that's probably the best word to call it. And I think that's always been. I think that's important as a streamer. I think you do need to have a good schedule. I mean, some people do kind of go, I'm just going to go live and that's amazing. And then the people just throw themselves into the chat. And then I'm like, I wish I could do that one day. But like for me, I tend to find it better and easier if I do set to a certain schedule. I've noticed when I do a sporadic stream, it barely anyone turns up. So it just suits me better that way. And it does suit me better that way in terms of like my IRL stuff, So, working a mixture of self-employed and part-time employed, having a family and stuff like that. So, I know now there's certain days of the week that suit me better. I've started to learn how to become a wrestler. that's a turn that I didn't expect, and that's every Friday. So it's like I don't stream Fridays like I used to,
Oh, wow.
but now I don't. So it's like, well, that day's out the window. It's gone. So I do find it better to kind of stick to a schedule. What's also changed is how many days of the week that I stream. Like when I first properly went through my affiliation, should we say Twitch affiliate, 4 or 5 years ago, I was only streaming 2 days a week, and then it quite quickly moved to 3, and then it moved to 4, and then I had a load of burnout last year, basically, and it's like, whoa, this is too much. No. So I've now gone back to 3, and I think that actually does suit me mostly the best, to be honest with you, is streaming 3 days a week.
What would you say are some difficulties that you've faced in streaming over the years, or content creation again as a whole? What are just roadblocks or hardships you faced?
It is balancing. It is balancing everything. Like I said, last year was a big part of that. And I don't mind sharing parts of my mental health, and breakdown and stuff like that. It's important to kind of talk about it because I know a lot of streamers struggle with it and don't say anything, and that's their business, that's their private life. I respect that, but as someone that is, someone that cares deeply about mental health, last year was a big moment for me. In terms of like a massive breakdown, like I've mentioned it quite a few times. That 2024 was possibly the hardest year of my life. It was really, really tough for various reasons, and a lot of it was to do with streaming culture. Burnout, doing too much, because on top of trying to stream 4 days a week at that time, I was also doing a level 5 coaching qualification, which level 5 is quite a high level, to do. It took me 2 years to finish that, put it that way. I was doing that. I was trying to be a dad to 3 kids. I was trying to be a husband. I was doing 2 podcasts because I also had Streamer Tears going on at that point. So I was doing 2 podcasts, and then on top of all of that, last year I kind of vowed to myself that I really wanted to try and do as many like the streamer meetups as I possibly can. So, I've arranged a lot of our own meetups, with our Nightbreed community in the past, but I didn't really do stuff like Insomnia. I didn't do stuff like, Timeless or Format or whatever. There was a lot of UK-based meetups that I really was like, right, okay, I feel like I really need to do this. And that accumulation of everything on top of that, arranging all the charity events as well, so like it was just too much. It was just too much, and I'm one of the worst people when it comes to being able to give good advice but not taking it, in terms of knowing that I'm doing too much. And it was actually one of the meetups that I did that kind of was one of the first moments of like, you're doing too much, was I don't mind saying it, and I'm just going to shout him out. A good friend of mine is Gotham Beauty. I don't know if he's listening, but I saw Gotham in Twitch Cardiff last year. I turned up for the event, was like, "Hey!" And then he saw me. He was a mod for mine for a long time. I've known him for a long time. He's one of my closest friends in this area of Twitch. And he saw me IRL, and he was like, "Johnny, are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What? You all right?" And he was like, "You look so tired." And he's so blunt. He's one of those lovely, blunt people that will tell you things that you don't always want to hear. And I love him for that. And he was just like, "Are you okay?" And it was the kind of the moment where I was like, mate, I've not seen this guy in IRL probably for about four to 6 months, since the last meetup or whatever. And he only sees me online, and he just saw me in person, and I probably looked like absolute shit, let's be honest. just trying to paddle through it. And it was like, oh man, I really am not okay. And sometimes you kind of need that, like that bam in your head, almost like from someone else to kind of say, slow down, do something about this, you know. And that was when I was like, right, okay, yeah, I need to do something. So I really kind of analyzed everything, you know, what I was doing, what was providing happiness. If it wasn't providing any happiness, eliminate it completely. Was it being productive, like the charity events? Yes. Can I do that in a way that is less on me and, you know, make it productive and useful for the charity? If the answer is no, then drop it. If the answer is yes, then do it, you know, which is one of the reasons why this year I've done my last, as far as I'm aware anyway, I can't say for sure, but probably my last solo charity event. You know, I did the big 5-year celebration of fundraising event that I did. That was on purposely to kind of do a big blow off of this idea that if I do a solo event, I can only make so much money for the charity on my own. We raised, I can't remember, 1,200, 1,400 for cats protection, which was wonderful. But I know collectively with our community of communities, we can hopefully hit 5 digits. Fingers crossed. That's what we hope for, right? So that takes that's the effort versus reward that I'm looking for now. So, you know. Because it takes probably just as much time to do a solo event than it is to do a community event, or maybe it takes a bit more to do a community event, but it's worth it, you know, if that makes sense. So anyway,
Right, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, fair play for you know, just kind of pulling yourself out of that and analyzing what it is that wasn't bringing you happiness, as you say, and just kind of the balance, that striking that balance with content creation overall is so difficult. I can attest to that myself. What are, for anyone who might be listening as well, who's perhaps could be struggling with the same thing, what are things someone should look out for to avoid that burnout and avoid bringing themselves that unhappiness, if you're comfortable answering that?
Yeah, it's hard to answer, isn't it? In terms because everyone's so different. Everyone deals with burnout differently. Everyone deals with you know, the levels of work that you put into streaming. I mean, this is Streamer Stories podcast. People stream for different reasons as an initial anyway. Some people might do it for fun. Some people trying to do it to hope to trying to build a career out of it, you know. And when people say for fun, that can be different things as well. People can say, I want to have fun with just my mates, IRL mates, come and watch me stream, you know, and they have my 4 to 6 people watching them and their mates, and that's wonderful. That is a perfectly wonderful way of streaming, isn't it? But then you might have people who want to build communities as friendships, you know, and then you will have people that want to build it into a potential career, of course, you know. And there's probably other ways and reasons for streaming, but that in itself makes it a hard question to answer because you know, different efforts go into this in the first place. And then from that, everyone's threshold is different. And I think that's an important word. Is what is your threshold? What can you do, and what can you cope with? You know, and I hate to use the word cope because it shouldn't be just coping. It should be fun. And again, that's probably where balance comes into it as well. Is the difference is you want to have that nice amount of balance of fun and cope. And mine was going last year big time. You know, but that's kind of where you need a lot of self-reflection. And I think that's important because some people struggle with that. Some people don't quite realize they're not the best at self-reflecting. So if you're not good at that, try to acknowledge that and then try to get good people around you, if that's IRL or if that's on Twitch or whatever, you know, that's important, and that's wonderful because then you can get those people to say, hey, are you okay? You know, and just saying, like, you know, do you want to back out a bit? Taking breaks is really, really important, you know. And I've never and that was one thing that I've learned to do probably since last year as well. Is I used to take maybe a week off max, because there's always this expectation that if you take more than a week off, a lot of people in the streaming world kind of think that if you take more than a week off, everyone's going to disappear. They're going to go to someone else and never come back. And there might be a small element of that being partially true. I do know streamers that have taken long extended breaks and come back, and then their viewership's halved, you know, and that's sad. So I'm not saying that there's no real threat of that happening. There is, but I think once you've kind of established a certain community, and by that point last year I had, I took like 3.5 weeks off. I think it was like 3.5 weeks off I took, and you know, people have stuck by. They've come back. They understood. I communicated. I think that's important as well. I communicated to my community, like, I can't stream right now. And I think that's also so important. So there's a lot of smaller elements to think about, I think.
It's almost like it was almost like putting your foot down and just saying, "Guys, I just can't right now."
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of prioritizing your peace is a phrase I hear a lot, and it's very true. And in a similar vein to that, mental health is such a big part of balancing your streaming life. But even on a general note with streaming, last time we chat, I asked you what would be advice, the good old faithful. What advice would you give to someone getting into streaming? And at the time, you said appreciate the grind and don't expect to become an overnight success, which is golden words to live by. And I would love some more wisdom out of you. What more advice would you give to someone who wants to get into streaming? Any other nuggets of wisdom?
Yeah, when we did that podcast, it was the pandemic, wasn't it? And it was on the back end of it in terms of people joining Twitch and making content because they almost had no other thing to do. Whereas we're now really fully out of the pandemic. We're now back to what is apparently in a normal society. It's a very different context now, streaming now is, I'd say a startup streamer now would struggle more now than ever before. That's not to say don't do it, but anyone watching this, don't do it. I'm not saying that. I always remind you of the first episode we did of, celebrating 100 episodes of Streamer Stories. The first ever episode we did with Matt, aka Finish the Video Game. And the advice, Matt, don't stream. It was always one of my favourite things. Going back to shout out to Matt, I finished a video game on that. But I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying that. Be definitely aware of the grind now. Be definitely aware of it's so oversaturated now. If you were in the middle of the pandemic, it was saturated, absolutely, but you also had the viewership to back it up. So streamers were massively increasing in terms of numbers, but viewership was record numbers, literal record numbers of people watching people stream. Whereas now it's so much less, and because the pool of people that are on there now doing their thing, and myself and yourself included, Tango, obviously in that, they have the viewership has split so much more than ever before as well, because they have so much choice of people to watch. So in terms of what I would recommend, to a new streamer, it is trying to firstly find fun in it. You've got to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it, otherwise there's no point. But then secondly, maybe come somewhat with a community, and that can be IRL friends, or that can be, if you're already on the internet, try to find people that would be interested in the content that you're about to create. But yeah, be aware of that, and then hopefully from there you can build up. There are a lot of viewers out there that do love startup streamers. There is a lot of viewers out there that do love watching, under the radar streamers. So you will find, probably a community of people out there, but I think it'll probably be a slower process than we had the privilege of having, 4 years ago, which I don't think we realised at the time. So, I'm very grateful and privileged to have had that, opportunity to stream in those days. So.
All right, brilliant advice. Yeah, once again, brilliant advice. Yeah, you're completely right. I think the carrying over viewership, as you were describing there, be it from YouTube, maybe TikTok or Instagram or other places, that is how you get a head start. That's how you kind of get ahead of the game. I think growing naturally on Twitch nowadays is purely on Twitch. Tough. That is tough. Anyone who has managed it, salute you. I can't relate with that one. But yeah, no, that's excellent advice. We're gonna lighten the mood a little bit. And I'm going to ask you a follow-on question from what I asked you last time. So, in the last podcast, that is. In the previous podcast, I asked you if you were thrown on an island, you only had 3 games,
Yeah.
and you could only bring 3 games with you and nothing else. You said at the time, Left 4 Dead 2, Resident Evil 4 OG, and Skyrim. And I'm very curious to know, has that changed at all? Would you make adjustments, or would you throw it all out and start fresh with a new trio of games?
Yeah, I think I would keep Left 4 Dead 2 on there. I do think I would. We played Left 4 Dead 2 monthly, in our Nightbreed community still, and that is so much fun. Like, we get 6 to 8 of us still doing versus mode, so that's still fun. And considering that we've been doing that for over a year over in the Nightbreed, that's a testament. to the fact that the game is still so much fun to play in 2025. I would rather play that than like Phasmophobia or Dead by Daylight or anything like that. And I think that's probably because I'm an old guy. But it's still, I love that, and it's lovely to still do that. So I would still probably keep that on that island. We're still playing Left 4 Dead, maybe with the Nightbreed still. That would be wonderful. Skyrim, I might maybe change Skyrim maybe to Oblivion
Oh,
Remastered,
controversial. Oh,
maybe
nice.
because of the updated graphics and the visuals, and I've still not played it yet. I've played Oblivion, I've platinumed it. I love it very, very dearly. I always was like Team Skyrim, but over the years I've slowly moved into Team Oblivion. So, they're both beefy experiences, but might change it to Oblivion Remastered now. I think that might be. I still think that's still probably the definite full length experience of an RPG that is out there for me. Like respectfully, I'm not like I've tried getting into The Witcher, and I'm just not massive on it. I just didn't vibe with it. I tried like twice to really properly commit to playing The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and I love it. I wish I loved it more, but I don't love it enough to keep on it. Whereas I almost love the simplicity of Skyrim and Oblivion to a point. I mean, Oblivion provides a little bit more challenge, but some of the missions are just incredible, and I think that's probably where it is for me now. I think some of the missions and quests in Oblivion probably do top Skyrim, so I probably would switch it to Oblivion. So just because you're on the island for so long, I'd have to maybe think about that, changing it to that. Now, Resident Evil 4, like you said, it's interesting because Resident Evil 4 Remake hadn't come out when we last spoke. But one thing that has come out since we've last spoke is the Byrand, mod, and I've asked this question so many times to obviously so many guests, and we have said you can include mods. So I would probably say the PC version of Resident Evil 2 1998 with the Byrand mod, please, if that's okay.
Very specific.
Well, I can't choose a trilogy. That's 3 games, so.
Right, yeah, yeah. No, the Bioran, the complete randomizer for anyone who. Do you mind actually telling us a little bit about Bioran in case there's anyone listening who's not familiar with it?
Absolutely, yeah. So Byrand, for me the definite way to play Resident Evil OG trilogy now. So it's a wonderful mod where it randomizes literally everything. We call it a door randomizer, but it's much more than that because whilst it is a door randomizer, you'll go through a random door in a game. It'll take you to a completely different random door in the whole of the game, and so on and so forth. On top of door randomizing, though, it is item randomizing, character randomizing, dialogue randomizing, and items can be weapons, health, all that stuff. So it just completely changes every time you play the game. Every single experience will be different. They've made the wonderful team at Byrand, the modding community, have made so many skins of all your favorite Resident Evil characters. So you can literally play as Lady Dimitrescu in Resident Evil 1 if you wanted to. Maybe not 1, but 2. She will take the skin of Mr. X, instead saying stupid man thing and punching you in the face. It's wonderful. So it's just such an eclectic, fun, massive variety way of playing the original games. It offers, you can change anything. You can say, I don't want to have this music in it. I don't want to listen to the RE1 director's cut basement music. No, thank you. So I'm going to take that out. So you can pick your music. You can pick your character skins, your enemy skins, and you can change the difficulties. You can put the game into up to 4 different segments. So you can say, I'm going to split this game into 4 different quarters, of the game, or you can just do one big long experience of the game. You can change the difficulty of that as well. So it's just the best way to play Resident Evil nowadays. It's completely transformed the original trilogy, and then so much to the point that we did a massive charity event for it in the Dubai Rand for Mind. So yeah, it's amazing.
Fully endorse. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I've played Bioran myself a few times. Absolutely quality mod. Quality. It's brilliant. That's a great choice. And you can always play the game as is as well. So you kind of get 2 in 1, bringing it to the island. You've got the
Yes,
OG game and you've got the mod.
it's very true.
Yeah, hell yeah. Um, Okay, we are probably closing in on the end of our time together. Regrettably, the time has flown. But I have two questions to end us out with. One is very on the fly. I want to ask you about that wrestling you mentioned. I can't move past that. I've not moved past that. I need to know. Wrestling, Johnny Beard Wrestling. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so as I said, 2024 was a terrible, difficult year for me personally, and what I took into 2025 this year was just kind of like what I'm going to call the fuck it bucket, in terms of like, I'd not, fuck that, I'm not going to do that anymore. And only doing things that bring me happiness or joy or effort or worth or, value, should we say. Um, but it was also a year of trying to shake my foundations a little bit in terms of like trying to do different things. Now I'm a big wrestling fan. I have been for like 25 years. I love the art of wrestling. I love the stories. I love the cheesiness. I love the pantomime of it. I respect the athletes so much. Like they are, obviously incredible shape and make moves look really, really look absolutely painful, but making it as little impact on the person that's taking the move as possible. So, like, just everything about it, the psychology, the ring of it is just always been fascinating to me. And I always have too much respect for the art because then when I started to train, that became to my detriment because I'm not wanting to hit people. And it's like, hit them harder. And I'm like, I can't. So, because I'm too nice, I've been told. But yeah, that's basically what it was. So I went to see some, so there's been a local, I don't mind giving them a shout out. The Fusion Pro Wrestling is the local wrestling promotion to me. A shout out to Silver in the Skies. He is a streamer from Wales, and also it is his promotion alongside one of the other owners. So I've been aware of our local wrestling scene for some time, and I've seen a few of the shows. And during Pride, actually, it was our local Pride here in North Wales. They were having some wrestling going on, and they were like, every time I've been to see them live, or every time I've seen them, around the wrestlers and the community, they were like, "Come on, JB, come on, get in the ring, come on," because I'm quite a big guy. I'm 6'1". I'm over 100 kilograms, so I'm quite a big guy. And they're always like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah," and I'm like, I've always been, yeah, one day, like if I commit to it, it's always been like a thing of like, can I commit to it, like time wise? And the answer was always no, for obvious reasons that we've gone into. But like this year, as I said, going with the fuck it bucket, it was like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to make the time. I'm going to put in the effort because I have so much respect for wrestling that I would only do it and not take the piss. I would be going into it and giving it my all because I didn't want to waste the trainer's time. I didn't want to waste, anyone's time. I wanted to make sure that, one, can I do it? And then two, can I be good at it? And three, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this properly, and hopefully it'll be beneficial. And I think it has been. It's helping me keep fit, and it really hurts. It's really, really painful. But yeah, putting on a show, like I've done two shows now, and it's been wonderful. You can't beat that buzz of. It's the pantomime aspect. It is the crowd, the buying into it as well. It's all a show. It's all fun, and we all have a good time.
Bit of theatrics. I love it. Oh, that's actually great. I love that. That's such a fun little tidbit that we've learned today. That took me off guard. Well done. Okay, we are going to end this lovely podcast. It was such a pleasure talking to you. But we're going to end this on a nice silly one, nice little fun one. Bringing it back to maybe your childhood. Did you have a crush on a character in a game at all? Who was it and why? Or maybe you still have a crush. Maybe you still have a crush on a character in a game.
Oh yeah, Tifa. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Tifa's the obvious
Huh?
answer. It might be too obvious, but like, yeah, like Tifa's probably been my like biggest crush for like my whole life in terms of like video game characters. Yeah, I think I mentioned it in the podcast previously. Like that was who I named. Tifa was like my crush in high in well primary school and high school. Would be the name of that character would be Tifa. But yeah, I've always been Team Tifa. So yeah, Tifa's always been like a crush of mine. Other crushes probably has to go with Vader. I've always loved Vader and Resident Evil.
Classic.
Yeah, those are probably the big two.
Great choices. Amazing. Good old faithful. Cool ladies as well. They're very
Oh
cool
yeah.
ladies. All right. Okay. And that's how we're going to round it out. Thank you so much,
Thank
Johnny,
you.
for having this today. Also, of course, everyone knows how to find streamer stories, but please do also give us a little shout out of where they can find you, Johnny Beard, as a streamer, Twitch, the whole shebang, everything.
Yeah, so again, thank you for joining us for episode 100. We wanted to draw this back and do something interesting with it because it's a massive milestone. We never thought would be happening, and thank you to Tango for an amazing host. Always a lady of her word, because I remember back on episode 2, which you should be checking out, was Tango's first episode. It was Tango that said, "Oh, if you ever want to flip it back and do it on you, do yourself, I'll interview you." And then, massive credit, episode
Here we
9
are.
was the first
What's this?
episode.
I've got a record of like 5 episodes. Like, let's
You,
go. Come
yeah,
on.
no one's even touching that. Like you've had the most episodes of Streamer Stories, and
Let's go.
I'm the creator. I'm not allowing that to be changed.
Hell yeah. Nice and cemented in there.
Always a pleasure talking to you. Anytime I get the chance to, I will. But yeah, you can find me on Twitch under the word Johnny_Beard. You can find me on Twitter or X for JohnnyBeard42. My YouTube is just at Johnny Beard. My Blue Sky is at Johnny Beard. My Instagram, I don't know what that is now. I think it might be Johnny Beard or it might be Johnny_Beard. I can't remember. I've been trying to get the underscore out as much as I possibly can anywhere, but it's so hard. Twitter's the hardest. Like, there's that 42 in the end. I'm like, no, there's a Johnny Beard and a Johnny_Beard. I've literally went, please let me have your names. They're not even tweeting anymore, but nah. But yeah, I stream normally 3 times a week on Twitch. Some of those live broadcasts go to YouTube, and then yeah, I'll try to upload on YouTube as and when I can as well.
Excellent. All right. And also, do go back and check our older episode where we talked to Johnny Beer. We talked more about your origin story, how you got into streaming, how you got into gaming as a whole. So if you want the full package, make sure to go back and watch that episode as well. And there you go. That'll do it. I've been your host, Tangomushi. Should probably say that as well. And there we go. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Johnny.
Thank you so much. And thanks for watching, everyone. That's amazing.
Yes.
Everyone check out Tango.
Thank you for
Do
watching.
it.
That's optional.
See you soon, everyone. Much love. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. See ya.